And we're live! Hey everybody, it is time for hashtag SPSM chat. Some of you are watching on the Twitters right now. We're going to have a very special SPSM. I'm at Doc Foreman, and I'm going to introduce my guests in just a minute. I have at ADWW, Mr. Tony Wood, and we have a repeat SPSM alum at Bob Philbin, data scientist for Crisis Text Line with DoSomething.org, and these are cool people. Mr. Wood's going to be helping us manage our social media channels, and Bob Philbin is going to be talking about data and science and suicide prevention. Some really cool stuff, some cool projects that he's been doing since he was here just the beginning of last summer. Before I get rolling on that too much, I would love for you all to give me a shout out on Twitter. And for those of you who are listening or watching the YouTube stream, because we're going to be, our hands are going to be busy, irons and lots of fires, if you can help us please live tweet what Bob Philbin is saying, then we can really reach a lot of people with this message. So go ahead as you're messaging with hashtag SPSM and let me know who's on. And I'm going to get started with introductions just as soon as I can say hi. Here we go. Who is on? Will Bart help? See, will you message Bart?
Bart's there. He's there. They're on. Loxton's here too.
Oh, Matthew Loxton. Speaking of data and science, all my sexy data science people are here, and I mean that in a total professional, sexy way. Yes, it is a little tricky, Matthew, but it's very cool. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to start with just a hello tweet, and then we are going to introduce our guests. Hi, all on hashtag. See, do you like how we're live on YouTube? Give a sister a hand. Help Bob Philbin by live tweeting him tonight. We're going to spell tonight the classy way. Wait, it's correcting it saying unite. It's like they don't even know that this is Twitter. So, everybody who is watching, I'm going to go ahead and Bob, I've got control of the cameras. Everybody knows, really quickly, Tony Wood, introduce yourself very briefly.
Howdy, everybody.
Everybody, this is Tony Wood. He's going to be helping us manage our channel. Many of you know him. He is the most validating man on the planet, isn't he, at Dr. Bart Andrews? Yes. And our show tonight, this is the fabulous Bob Philbin of Crisis Text Line. You're a data scientist.
Yes, I feel very lucky to be a data scientist.
Say hi to the people.
Hello, everyone.
Bob, go ahead and take a second, tweet out a hello. And maybe while we're doing that, we can talk a little bit about what a data scientist is.
Okay, I'm going to...
Take your time and don't worry. I will keep up the patter. It's so fun tonight. So a lot of you know we're talking a lot about data right now because we're very interested in what the use of digital media means for how we can collect and learn from and use messaging and data for suicide prevention and for mental health policy. Woo, look, it's Desiree Stage. Bart Andrews says Tony's looking good. Oh my gosh, it's Carl Dunn. Mwah, mwah, mwah. It's so good to hear from you, Carl, every week. And Twirl and Swirl is here. Oh, and she's got us on vlog. I feel like this is Romper Room. And I see Hollis Easter. Look at how the gang is all just showing up. It's so good to see you all. And so, Bob, come back to us if you've tweeted. Okay. What's in the cup? It's my usual high-octane coffee. No, there's no special Louisiana love in that. What do you got, Bob?
I have mint tea at this point. After 10 p.m., I stick to the non-caffeinated stuff.
Come on, what are you, girl?
Bob.
So tell us what a data scientist.
And Red Bull, of course. So yeah, mix of mint tea and Red Bull.
What's a data scientist, Bob?
Sorry, one more time.
What is a data scientist?
What is a data scientist? So, a data scientist, it's a mix of three things. and I can't take credit for this. A lot of people have been asked this question and are debating what it means. But what we're settling on is statistics, some level of hacking skills or engineering, and then domain-specific knowledge. And so that allows you to not only find patterns in large amounts of data, but then analyze them for insights, and then be able to, I mean, the real kicker is being able to convey those insights to other people through storytelling, and that's where that domain-specific knowledge comes in. So can you actually see that pattern in the data?
So you're saying that when we're using data as a data scientist, really you're telling, in the case of social sciences and social services, you're using data to tell stories that help us do things more effectively.
Yeah, there are two applications of data science. One is to build data products. So when you go to Amazon and they say people who bought this also bought this, that's a data product. So it's using patterns that they see of purchasing habits and then feeding that back into telling a story to somebody actually in Amazon saying, hey, other people like you also liked this other product. So that's a data product. The data storytelling is if you're telling the story within your company, you're saying, for me, it's like, oh, we just saw, we sent out an email, we did some testing and found that this headline is the most effective, so let's use that moving forward. Even if the insight's there, I have to tell some kind of a story about it to actually sell people on using my insight.
So you're saying we have building data products and then sharing data-informed insight.
Data products and data stories.
Data stories.
Like to talk about
Can you tweet that out? Because that's really a good answer and better than I could do when I was I've been trying to explain this to people and stinking at it.
Sure. And yes, I can tweet that out.
As a matter of fact, while you're tweeting that out, I'm going to just switch the camera. We had a really neat conversation with Matthew Loxton today, and he's a part of the chat right now. So if you guys see Matthew Loxton, everybody send him waves and kisses, because he took our interview with Dr. Richard McKeon, which was like so cool last week, and he was showing us how to drop it into a qualitative data analysis tool that could help create a transcript that could be cleaned, and then you could flag and do qualitative data analysis. You could actually take the social media that we generated and then do qualitative data analysis with that content using a fancy program. Matthew, did I get that right? Matthew, please tweet me. For the love of God, Matthew. Tony, how did I do on that explanation?
I think you did just fine.
We're waiting. My Twitter feed's a little slow tonight. There we go. I was able to get the link. You guys are looking good. It's James Saylor, who's one of my favorite SPSM peeps. He's so awesome.
Just needed a link to the video. That's what he's done.
Let's see. Tweeter overboard. Tony sent out the vote. Anybody expecting increase in suicidality after news of death with dignity advocate Brittany Maynard assisted suicide today? This is Jules Green.
Yeah.
Who I'm following right now. So she's worried about that.
That was the woman with the terminal brain cancer that had announced the fact that she was doing assisted today, and that she was going with dignity before she lost her faculties.
So, I'm gonna say that I think that given the way that they are handling that in the news coverage, it's probably unlikely that we're going to see an increase in crisis calls. People who are dealing with end-of-life and death with dignity issues are usually facing a different set of issues than people who are experiencing mental illness and lethal emotional pain. This is really cool, and Dr. Bill Schmitz, if you will respond to this a little on Twitter, Schneidman, who is the founder of Suicidology, talks about sort of the criteria. I think there are 10 or 7, there's a number, of criteria of what a good death is, and there are points when an assisted suicide could be considered a reasonable or good death, especially in light of a painful and debilitating terminal illness and end. It would be a very tiny number of cases, but I think it's a good chance to talk about end-of-life decisions that we're making, because Suicide as a way to escape horrific emotional pain is different than a suicide as a way to address death with dignity and a terminal illness. And I think that the news media are doing a fairly okay job of covering that. This is just my opinion. I'm sure there'll be other opinions. But we're going back to Bob and data science. Bob, there you are again. So tell me how you decided to do data science for social good.
I've actually always been embedded in the social good world. So I started out after college working on environmental issues, and then continued on to other social issues, always thinking about how can I empower the unempowered, those who haven't had a fair shot. And I think the environment comes to mind, but also teens who might not have the resources that they need to get help and to pursue long-term self-care. So who's going to be for them in the first moment to support them? And just the fact that we can apply data sciences. And what I actually do is I don't do much to directly help teens. My role is more helping the helpers. So I'm there, data science driving better counseling. So can we offer insights to our counselors that will allow them to better help the teens?
So what made you consider mental health? And like you said, you first got interested in applying data science to the environment. Mm-hmm. What's your story about how you became interested in applying it to mental health?
Okay, well, I'll say that my senior thesis in college was on the pH tolerance of snow algae, which was kind of the pinnacle of my environmental, like far out there. So we were actually working with NASA, which was really cool. But at some point, I thought, okay, I want to apply science to human problems, local problems, and so I realized that so I wanted to move towards people, and this opportunity actually came up because I was working at DoSomething.org at the time, the largest organization in the country for teens and social change, and the founder of that, Nancy Lublin, started up Crisis Text Line. There were teens who were reaching out to DoSomething.org, a volunteering organization, saying that they were struggling with being bullied and saying that they were struggling with self-harm, and they had nowhere else to go. So she started Crisis Text Line, and I thought, what else am I going to do that's going to be more powerful than this, than helping teens in their moment of crisis to move beyond that and then move towards self-care? So just the magnitude of what I think data science and more technology in general can bring to helping these teens.
So one of the things that we talk about a lot is that suicide is the 10th leading cause of death. It's a real public health crisis. Every year, every day we're going to have 100-some deaths to suicide, and like this many to Ebola. It's really, and for kids who are teenagers and young adults, it's the second or third leading cause of death. So, you're not picking a small social problem by any means, or a rare one. And one of the things that you've been using data science with in relationship to mental health is that you've been trying to show trends in crisis. So when youth use text messaging to contact us in crisis, when are they calling us? What are they calling us about? Where are they calling us from? I mean, really basic things that we kind of didn't know before, right?
Yeah, and right. So crisis trends. The concept is, and part of the reason why we started Crisis Text Line is teens were underrepresented on other services like phone lines, to a lesser degree online chat. But so texting for teens is the #1 medium that they use to communicate with each other, with their peers, and probably for a lot of parents that holds true as well. But we wanted to find a place that's going to be easily accessible for teens, and therefore be this one source for teens, so 24/7, all across the country, no matter the issue that the teen is facing. That not only provides a good service for the teens, but it provides a unique look at the data and the issues that teens are facing, because otherwise the data is fragmented. And so suddenly we have this more complete look at teens in crisis, and like you're saying, that allows us to see what day of the week is highest for eating disorders, or in what state is suicidal ideation the most common, controlling for population. It's only by having this universal source or this universal focal point for teens that we can see those trends, and they're more accurate, they're more valid that way.
So one of the questions we have from Mindy Schwartz is, she says, you know, when we're talking about teen suicides and we're talking about youth, are we getting any data about these school sort of murder suicides, that kids are coming to school in great distress? And one of the things that the suicidologists are talking about is that these sort of murder-suicide things are really someone who is suicidal and also murdering people in the middle of a suicide event, and which is one way to look at it. Some people are saying. Are you getting texts about people who are feeling not just thoughts of suicide, but thoughts of hurting other people while they suicide? And is that something that you feel like you're addressing with this?
I wish I could say I had that data. I haven't seen it. We may be, and actually probably our counselors. We have over 350 counselors right now across the country that are part of Crisis Text Line. They could speak to it better than I could about whether we've seen those specific issues. What I think about as a data scientist is my domain expertise. Like I was saying, I came from environmental issues. I was working on volunteering with data science. And now, only since February 2013 have I been working on mental health issues specifically. My role, I see it, one, is opening up this data to the public. Because I can shape the data in a way that makes it accessible to the public. I can put up this website, crisistrends.org, and share these trends. Other people are going to have more domain expertise than I do, especially given the wide range of issues that we're facing. So my goal is to open up this data and then let other people put their domain expertise on top of that.
So I mean, part of what you're doing is, and I'm going to switch, I mean, it's really that by using data science and applying it to this area, I mean, you're really forging some new territory, so that what we hope is for wider adoption of data science tools and techniques in this field, so that when people ask these questions, they have the tools to get answers or insights to these questions.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that's excited me the most is the number of academics, the number of institutions that have reached out to us saying that they have these skills that are sitting there, like people who can do machine learning and natural language processing and really complicated algorithms, but don't have interesting or pro-social data sets to work with. And so we're looking at the possibility, can we start partnering with people with a lot of expertise in different types of data science, and then take insights from the data that we can feed back into what's the most effective way to counsel a teen in crisis.
We're gonna sort of, I think, sort of tie off this topic, and then we'll respond to a thread of things that is going on. I mean, but one of the things that you're saying, and this is really hard for our field, Bob, which is that we are not all equally effective, and some therapists are more effective than others, some crisis interventionists are more effective than others, and we're going to have the ability to know that and sort of have to face that in a way we haven't before, right? Because if you're the primary therapeutic tool, like it's a quality control item with counselors, and what we hope or think or feel what we believe makes people better may not be the same as what actually makes people better. That's going to be a very different model of delivering service, and it's going to be, we'll have varying levels of comfort with that.
Data science can play the quality check role. It can assess for quality. We can do things like sentiment analysis, so we can see how the emotion of a teen changes over the course of conversation. It's not that helpful within a conversation, because a counselor who's in the conversation knows how the teen is feeling as well as a sentiment analysis tool would. But it can be helpful after the fact to check quality, and you can see trends with counselors over time. But I think the thing that we're more excited about even is so not only quality but learning. So can this be a learning tool for counselors who may not have expertise in a given issue or may be new to counseling? We have a lot of volunteer counselors who are passionate about volunteering for Crisis Text Line, but even though we have this 40-hour training that was created based on what a lot of other crisis centers are doing, those first few shifts are always hard. And so can we have data science products, like I was talking about earlier, in place that are going to support these counselors when they need help and when they're not sure what to do?
Excellently put. I'm gonna sort of switch the topics just a little bit and make a brief comment, and this is probably not your area of expertise, but right now on the SPSM chat they're having a lot of conversation on whether or not depression is a terminal illness that results in suicide. I'm going to say no. Diabetes can become a terminal illness, but it is not necessarily a terminal illness, not like stage 4 brain cancer where we know that there is no survivability. What we do know about depression, just like diabetes, is that if left untreated or in very severe cases, it can progress to death. But there is a whole lot that can be done. It is not, depression, much like diabetes, is not a death sentence, and we do have good and effective treatments for it. So while it is intensely painful and does result in death at times, in fact, most people can and do recover. We do have effective treatments. It is not necessarily a terminal illness. And I feel like I don't want to invalidate people who are saying that right now, to say that this is really severe and it deserves to be seen with weight, just like I think that diabetes is a major public health problem and it deserves weight and attention, but diabetes is often not terminal. And so that was that bit. That's us monitoring the feed, Bob. You're a very good sport. Guess what it's time for?
Oh, the poll. Okay, I'm ready. I see a good question in the feed too.
Why don't you respond to the question in the feed while I go ahead and start the bowl of interesting questions. We're just going to multitask.
So the question is, how can suicidology, mental health, reach out and engage more data scientists? And I'll say, yeah, really challenging question. And for us, I mean, data scientists are the hot career right now. Data science is the hot career, and so it's really hard to recruit data scientists. We, for a while, we're thinking of hiring a second one. We're investing a little more in expanding our volunteer program right now because that's growing so quickly. So we'll come back to data science later in 2015. But we had this applicant who was amazing, really liked the guy, and wanted to offer him a position, but he ended up going into a master's program in data science at Harvard instead. And the reason was just the skills are in such high demand that he wanted to make sure his skills were in good shape. And so I think there's always going to be, especially right now, a tough battle to bring more data scientists in. They can make a lot more money elsewhere. Okay, so here's how I would do it. Going back to this idea of bright spots, which is find out who is a data scientist and who is in mental health, and then actually gather some qualitative data, so go out, interview them. So I wouldn't interview myself, probably somebody else should do this project. But
you're totally
interview them. Yeah. What got them interested? What brought them into the mental health space? Find out what the commonality is there, and then go look for more people like that. Go look for more data scientists like that.
I love this, and we have to find a way to tweet that. So I'm gonna ask a fun survey for you and I and Tony to answer to, and then we're gonna sort of I think we need to capture that, which is how can we evolve. We've had a couple of data scientists here with us, but I mean, I think our field just needs more, so I think we should definitely tweet that content out. But here's the question from the bowl of interesting questions. It's on Halloween candy. Which Halloween candies would you hoard, which would you trade, and which would you trash?
Oof. That's a little hard.
Don't tell me you don't eat candy.
Hoard.
Hoard, trade, or trash?
Hoard. Well, I think for me the Whoppers go, so let's go for trash. Forget the Whoppers.
Those are valuable traders.
Yeah, perhaps among a certain crowd of people, but it's not that I disapprove of them, it's just that they're not really malted milk balls. They're the sad cousin of
Tony, I think the implication here is trade all of them to April because she sounds like
I like Whoppers. I have to tell you, like, after I eat too many, I get a little funny, like, texture on the roof of my mouth. I like them. Like, all chocolate things I think are hoard.
I think I'd keep the Reese's peanut butter cups, and I think I'd trade the Kit Kats because I think those are high value. I think those are high value trades, whereas the Whoppers, you have to reach a specific audience to get people who want those, and apparently that audience is Dr. April Foreman.
What about you, Bob?
So I'll give an anecdote from my childhood where I used to build leaf forts in my yard, and I would hide all my Halloween, or about half my Halloween candy in the leaves. So if my fort was ever, under siege from, I don't know who would actually siege this leaf fort, nobody ever did, I would have the supplies. So I hoarded everything.
I knew you were prepared.
All of it.
Yeah.
It was so intimidating they didn't even attack.
Exactly. So I just got to eat all the candy eventually.
Like, what are the trash candies? Like nobody wants them. They're not good for anything.
Oh, jeez. The people who give out raisins on Halloween.
Raisins, toothbrushes. Oh.
I like raisins. I like
And
raisins.
raisins aren't even good for you, really, because they stick to your teeth. They're high in sugar.
California raisins, we love you as a sponsor.
I think they make the people who give them away feel better. I think that's pretty much their primary focus.
Oh. So I'm going to say, for me, the thing that I think that you couldn't even give away was the Tootsie Rolls that were not chocolates. They were like sometimes an off-brand, and they were like not Starbursts. And they, you know what I'm saying? They would be like lemon or
Nazi bursts.
and they were like nobody would eat them.
Oh, the Nazi and pop, of course.
They were not good. They were not good. All Smarties, though, all Smarties could be kept and hoarded for Christmas for playing poker.
Wow. Till Christmas. That's impressive.
Like, well, you have like the family gathering, so we would like play. We would like open the Smarties and play like Tripoli.
None of my candy lasted. Like the first week of November, whatever.
So we're coming back. Oh, Necco wafers, your marshmallow peanuts, and your Smarties. Mindy Schmortz Brown says, I like it. Look at that. And Cascadia Chad says hi. Wow, they're really chatting about whether or not depression is a terminal illness, and that says something that we're having this conversation. And about it's, I'm going to say it's like living with depression and anxiety is a lot of like managing diabetes. I'm going to say it's really, really similar. And it's okay for us to have different perspectives. You guys are doing great. Dr. Bill Schmitz, I like to call him Happy Schmitz. He says, as humans, we're all terminal. Thank you, Dr. Bill Schmitz. Yes, we're all going to die. So
living is a terminal illness, indeed.
Yes.
Nicely put.
Thanks, Bill, for bringing the mood up. We appreciate it.
Can you look through your tweets and tell me, Bob, which question we're on? Because I've almost lost the thread of what our last question was to you.
There's a question about how are we using data science at Crisis Text Line, and how did I get Crisis Text Line to adopt data science methods? Oh,
this is so sexy! I'm so glad you're going to talk about this. I know I have weird taste. Let's all admit it. But you did a webinar, and we did tweet out a link to the webinar where you talked about adopting data science techniques in the offices where you work, and I would love for you to talk to SPSM about that.
So I think there are a number of factors, but the critical part is getting buy-in. You need buy-in from your culture, and the highest or the first level to that is your board.
Okay.
So
Talk
your
about
executive
your
board. We were lucky. So our executive board was bought in from the very beginning. DJ Patil, who was the first chief data scientist at LinkedIn, is on our board. Dana Boyd, who's at Microsoft Research. So we already had deep data expertise, and so I was one of the first 2 hires, along with an engineer of Crisis Text Line. So we had that, which was lucky. If you don't have the board bought in from the start, you actually move to what I did next, which is figure out ways to save the people at your organization time, save hours. And so one application of this, even at Crisis Text Line, so once we have the board bought in, one of the first things I worked on was our marketing. So how do we reach out to teens who are in crisis and let them know about our service? And so Meg Rose is the head of our program, our volunteer program. At the time, she was also doing marketing for reaching out to teens, and she was traveling to Chicago and El Paso, and putting out stickers in schools, setting up partnerships with local radio stations, doing a lot of on-the-ground work. This took about I believe about 2 weeks over the course of Chicago and El Paso. It generated some traffic, but it was a very intensive process, and so I realized that we did have some free money from Google AdWords. So Google gives grants to nonprofits for free AdWords, and AdWords.
Tweet that, Shazat. Like, pause right now because these people don't know this.
Yeah,
this
so
is news to me.
I'm going to tweet this out. $10,000 a month in free AdWords.
And these crisis line folks really, especially who are trying to promote their agency and services, should probably know that.
Yes. Oh, yes, it's called the Google, I was looking up the name, it's called the Google Grants Program.
Ooh.
Google.com/grants.
We'd love you as a sponsor, Google. I would say the F-bomb less often.
Or more, depending upon your preference.
Whatever you want. I do what I'm told, Google. And while we're taking a brief break for that, you guys are doing a great job on SPSM. Bob Philbin, Fancy Data Scientist, is making sure to specifically tweet out information about getting Google grant money for Google Ads to help advertise, promote your not-for-profit services. We have several people who are on this chat who work for nonprofits or volunteer with nonprofits or who know that they're important parts of their community. Please do spread that word, because right now Google is really sort of the yellow pages of most of the services that we seek, and many people are trying to find mental health services using Google, and that this is in fact a way that you can get advertising that is very likely to be used by your typical consumer. This was something that I did not know, that I've learned from the brilliant Bob Philbin. And so now we're bringing you back. There we go. There you are.
Yeah, hello. So yeah, it's great. It's a lot of people go online if you're feeling depressed or self-harming. A lot of people will go on Google or other search engines and look for advice, look for help. So yeah, it's a great way to get the word out.
And I'm retweeting you right here. This is really important, and I'm even going to take a minute to respond. And I'm going to ask for some help. Hey, SPSM, help us get the word out on using Google. It's Google what? What's it called? Google Grant?
Google Grants.
For online ads for health services. Woohoo! I'm sharing the links, and hopefully they'll retweet. If you're watching this, wow, Dr. Bart Andrews says the SPSM is very hard for him. This line between preventing suicide but having respect for other people's opinions and their self-determination is so confusing. And I'm going to say it's more, I want to say confusing, because I think that if there were one right answer, then we would all just know what the right answer was. Sometimes there's just a clear right answer. Sometimes there are multiple perspectives. Things are multidimensional. I think this is a situation, I mean, we're talking about an issue that can be seen from different places validly. And if there's anything that a bunch of shrinks should be able to do, it is all be very comfortable seeing things differently. And I think for all of us who are very familiar with the mental health system, we are okay. And we're learning, right, and At About Suicide is noticing that we're having very different conversations simultaneously because we're social media and we're sexy. So I'm coming back to you, Bob, so I'm pulling the screen back. Do we have one more question, or I knew that I sort of slowed the questions down because I knew exactly this would happen. We pick up in velocity. So do we have any more questions for you, if you'll have them in your notifications on Twitter? Because if not, Not Bob.
Let's see.
We were going to try to do a little screen
Crisis
sharing.
trends. Yeah.
We're about crisis trends, right?
Yes.
Tony, can you
I think
assist
that's
us
the
with
main
that?
thing.
I can pray for Bob's success.
You helped
Okay.
with Jonathan Singer. Jonathan Singer showed some wonderful screen shares where he had sort of the Google trends, and he showed us graphs, and it sort of took over the screen like magic.
Yeah. I mean, Bob's no.
Look at that!
See?
Ta-da! Yeah.
Rare
Way
changes
to
things
go
up.
at Bob Philbin. So tell us a little bit about what crisis trends is, and tell us what we're looking at right here.
Okay, so Crisis Trends is our public data set. So this is data that shows crises by time of day.
Okay.
You can see the different titles here by day of week, over time, and by state. And so how this works is every conversation that a teen has at crisis text line, the counselor at the end of the conversation marks that conversation with the issues that came up, so we can see where self-harm came up or LGBTQ issues, etc. And actually we have a full list of the issues that we're tracking right here. And so what Crisis Trends allows you to do, it's a near real time. We're updating it at this point between every day, every couple of days, but moving towards even more frequent updates. And but so you can see the latest data in how teens are. Let's take a look at for depression, for example, and we'll just see this. Take a second to load, and then we can see the times of day. Oops. Where for example, depression is peaking as an issue for teens. We can also see crises by state. I think one of the interesting ones here is anxiety. So the top 3 states here are marked, and you can see that there's a lot going on, a lot of anxiety in the Northeast, for example.
Oh, why do you think that is?
Well, so here's where my lack of domain expertise comes in. So
You're like, no, Dr. Foreman, no, I'm not going to comment there. All right, cool, we'll move on.
Suicidal thoughts.
I like to blame everything on the weather.
I would love to do a weather analysis to see how our data matches up against the weather, and I can't say when that will happen, but
well, just because it's poorly correlated doesn't make it true or
exactly.
Not true.
Yeah, like Nevada and Missouri and Montana, like not climatically really similar, I don't think.
So Montana, the one thing that's interesting here that popped out to me is with the CDC's data that I think Montana's either number 1 or number 2. I can't remember. Alaska's up there as well, but Montana is 1 or 2 top issue according to the CDC's data around where suicidal ideation peaks. So there are some similarities. The difference being, CDC is collecting survey data, and that's happening in a lot of states every 2 years, sometimes every 4 years. The great thing about this is we're updating it all the time.
So one of the things that the data science is really allowing us to do is sort of see sort of a moving picture, not of just deaths, which there are, and a bunch of data methodological issues and really getting accurate counts of suicide deaths, but we're having like a report from one service of where are we getting the most reports of suicidal thoughts, what states are we seeing this more from. One of the things that this might do is give us information about where to deploy resources, which call centers may need to, which call centers or which mental health services may need to think like, well, what resources do we need to deploy? This is a lot, in some respects like the Google sort of flu trending, right? So we're seeing where suicide's trending across the country, where suicidal thoughts and suicide risk is.
And I think another really interesting one here is by day of week. So you can see that relatively speaking, suicidal thoughts are peaking over the weekend. So Saturday and Sunday is actually the highest. So those days when maybe less services are open, when teens might be more alone, are the most common days. Yeah.
You had less structure to your time, and stuff happened over the weekend. Social stuff, probably. So. Right.
So what can we do to help them out over the weekends?
Yeah, so that would be like, when do you want to be scheduling, do we want more weekend resources or do we want weekend urgent care resources, things like that. we were having some really great questions. Have a really cool question that you probably can't answer, but I'd love for you to give it a shot. Are you game for me?
Sure, yeah.
The last time you'll ever say yes to me, Bob Philbin.
I'm game for attempt, yes.
So at Cascadia Chat, who I've known on the Twitters, and I wish I could sort of meet you in person and just face kiss you. She's just a really great person. And she said, you know, is there a way, or have we ever thought about how we could link people who are suicidal with people who are experts in intervening with suicide? At Dr. Bill Schmitz will tell you that of clinicians all across the country, the best research consistently shows that only 10% of us have adequate training and adequate competence in suicide prevention and intervention skills. Like, we truly aren't prepared and ready. This is licensed folk, which is, I mean, you imagine your cardiologist not knowing CPR. It's really terrible. And, you know, what you're telling me, Bob, is that we are identifying people who are suicidal all over the country. How could we help these folks when we're identifying them? Not just, I mean, we want the call centers and we want the crisis services, but they really, they need more than crisis services. They need routine mental health care that is specifically addresses their suicidal thoughts and feelings. How could we use data to identify them and deploy some resources, get them linked with experts?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're exactly right on the, like, crisis text line sees itself as that crisis service. If a teen is in a really emotionally dangerous moment, crisis text line is there to help them move out of that moment of crisis. The tricky part is connecting them to long-term services. I wish I could say data science is directly applicable. I think one of the most effective, or one of the things I'm hoping for, is that the more data science we get out there, the more storytelling with the maps that we're doing, and as we continue to expand crisis trends over time, that's what gets in front of the eyes of policymakers, of people who are allocating money to mental health services, and bring some more money into this field. I don't think data science, off the top of my head, I mean, I don't know. It depends. You guys probably know more about this. Why the only 10% have the knowledge to effectively manage people who are suicidal. It sounds like we just need more people or stronger training. I mean, internally we are using data science to improve our training all the time. We're looking at what is most effective in a conversation to help a person in crisis, and we haven't really gotten down to the level of, okay, let's break it out by issue, what's most effective, but we have seen things like the more often a counselor uses I statements or personal pronouns, on average, the higher the rating of the conversation.
Really?
Yeah. So another one, maybe not quite as surprising, but I think really interesting for our training, is the power of open-ended questions. So what, how, and especially as opposed to why. When people are saying what, or counselors asking that what question, that is also correlated with higher outcomes from texters.
So can you just take a pause and tweet that out? That's really like what you were able to do with data science, and then I'm going to chat with Matthew Loxton while you do that. So Matthew. So when we were talking earlier this week about using a qualified data analysis tool, and you were taking our fantastic YouTube interviews and sort of showing us how we can pop things in and make transcriptions and learn about them, this has just happened for you, where the brilliant Bob Philbin has talked about a process or system thing where they've used data science to know which counselors may be more effective and what they can find in transcripts of data. So when we were talking about, like, how can you use social media to collect digital data and then use good digital tools to then do process analysis with them, like, there you go. That just happened just for you. And so thank you to @Bob Philbin. Everybody I know from the Twitters has an @ in front of their name now. We're having ongoing fabulous conversations about assisted suicide in the face of a terminal illness. We also you're really noticing that the attention to this issue is so complex that it sort of migrates into conversations about suicide, about preventable suicide, and whereas in this Brittany's case is probably quite a minority of cases of suicide, and we have this major public health issue that often happens in a different way. In fact, this is sort of the way that the media discusses it, these issues become confused, and you're doing great. Hollis says, Bob, this using data science to drive funding, exactly what I was talking about a couple weeks ago. That is right, Hollis. So you and Bob are equally sexy. That is my word for tonight. I don't have any spray whipped cream, but I really am turned on by all of this, like how can we use things that we can measure and understand to predict what resources we need, what problems we're addressing, when we're being successful, where we can do better, deploy more resources. I mean, when we don't have unlimited resources, these are the challenges we're solving. And so, go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say it ties back into this idea of data products and data stories. So data products, we're creating a better training through through the data science and the insights. And then the data stories, that's what we're sharing out through crisis trends and hoping just to raise awareness, build funding, really get emotional resonance with people around these issues.
You're doing great. You've sold me. So this is the last moment for this. Oh, we got a damn straight. Way to go, Hollis. Damn straight. So we're going to pull out another question from the bowl of interesting questions. I don't know what it's going to say. I saw this on a party card. I knew I was a nerd the day I ...
Tony, do you want to?
That was so long ago. That was so long ago. I identified as a nerd so long ago. This is asking me about ancient history. Let's see. Actively shopping for let's see, what was it? It wasn't PCI, it was ISA bus modems, maybe? Maybe that's sort of the day that I realized it was over for me, that that it was done, that there was never going to be a cool day that came. It was going to be nerddom forever, and I was either going to be proud of it or die proud of it. Yeah, I'd say it was a long time ago. I was probably 14. Sorry.
Like, oh,
I don't have a great answer. It was a long time ago.
How about you, Bob?
Ooh, probably the first moment was there was an analogy test that we took in 6th grade, and it was a national test. And so at some point I was nationally ranked in this analogy test, and they announced my name over the school loudspeaker, and everybody else in the class stared at me for a minute, and not all in a good way, I would say, but that's when it sunk in. So, but I've stayed true to it since then.
I thought I was pretty cool, and I thought it was just like maybe they just didn't get it. But like I remember in the 5th grade that we had a school like a talent show, and I went to the same school from like kindergarten through high school graduation with like the same 75 kids who, like, if you're all watching from Lewisburg Elementary Middle School and LHS, like, hey, and these are cool people to have tolerated me. But in the 5th grade talent show, everybody else did like lip syncing, which was really big in the 80s. You all remember? You don't remember this. You all are too young. So lip syncing was like a thing that people did. It was a lot of fun, and everybody else did a lip syncing like band number. And I recited a poem I had written on existentialism.
Wow.
And I think I won. I won that, and I won a free video rental. Like I got to go to the video store and rent a VCR tape, which was also like an expensive sort of luxury item, especially at that time and for me. And so then I rented some sort of throwback Disney movie with my
probably should have realized earlier, now that I think about it, because I was on a first name basis with all of my school librarians. All of them. Everyone from second grade forward, probably.
Oh, yeah, Mrs. Rennie.
Now that I think about it.
So we all had approval from our, from our teachers and, other school
Absolutely.
figures.
And incredulity from from our peers. And they were right.
Exactly, yep.
They were right. We would have thrown them under the bus in a second.
Oh, look at them. They're talking about data analysis about suicide individual providers, and Dr. Bart Andrews is noticing some of the research difficulties or constraints. Sorry, April, you are not a nerd. Sorry. Oh, Mindy, I am so a nerd. Like, let's not even... I feel like I've earned my nerd card, but I'm okay, Mindy. I'm okay. Let's see. Let's all trot out our stories to try to establish one of each other's nerddom bona fide. Oh, Hollis. I think Hollis could get us, he has a bagpipe playing gig.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
which like, I have to share
Definitely.
that I like joined my like Scottish like clan, and so like I'm all of this. I'm like I'm all of this. I'm like, bring out the bagpipes. I'm ready for this. So we're getting ready. We're working. We're wrapping up. So if you could check your feed, Bob Philbin, and see what questions we still have left. We've got just about a few minutes left to answer questions, and we're going to be sort of starting the wrap up. Look at this Twitter feed. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you see any particular questions?
I think that I had one last one out, but maybe I really did slow it down, knowing we'd be.
We have like 9 minutes. So, is there anything that Bob wants to say about what he does to this crowd of people? Because I think we've kind of pulled him through a difficult process.
And yeah, go ahead.
I would say one of the critical things that a data scientist does, and what I try to do, is there are probably 10 or 12 things that every organization is doing, and there are probably 2 or 3 of those things that the organization is doing really well, and the other ones maybe not so much. So the goal of the data scientist is to figure out where those are. What are the 3 that you're doing really, really well, and then the decision usually is the right decision usually to double down on those, double down on your bright spots, or for the other ones, if the other pieces are critical, how do you improve them quickly? And I think one of the best ways to improve, whether on the bright spots or on the other things that you're doing, is saving your organization time, because saving money is sexy, but saving time is personal for the people on your team. So if you can save somebody time, they are going to be a data science fan, a data analysis fan for life.
Okay, I like that. And I have to tell you, that does resonate with me as someone who feels like I could use 3 assistants just to get through one day. And I work with at my home, and then at work, and with Tony I work with lots of great people. But boy, if I had more hours to get more things done for them, I know everyone would be happier with me. So when we're talking about a not-for-profit organization who's doing the most with the leanest resources, that makes perfect sense.
So,
right.
I think you may have answered this question already, but Hollis Easter says, what things do you wish the rest of the field would do differently based upon data science?
I think, so one of the big things is automation, and automation in the sense that training, like we have this 40-hour training. We're just figuring out ways to streamline the process. It's a lot of time. Meg Rose, our program volunteer manager, is working way longer hours than she should be, and over the 40-hour standard. But one of my big hopes is to automate some of the process to save her time. So, like, for example, can we do some automated test conversations? We're never going to automate a real conversation, but an automated test conversation would allow a counselor who's training to learn on their own without Meg or another supervisor having to hop into every single one of those. So little ways to save time. And then another big thing that I wish the space was doing is I think identifying outcomes or outputs, really. So an output for us is a texter rating. So we ask the texters at the end of the conversation how they're feeling, how much better they're feeling if they're not feeling better, and then we use that output data to inform what insights we take away from the data. So making sure that there's a clear output that you can look at your data against, so you can say, are you doing better or are you doing worse over time?
That is excellent, and I wish that we had a tool right now. Like, if you wanted to make me really happy, Bob, if you really want to make me happy, there would be a tool that would just, like a drag and diction tool, that would just take and parse out what you're saying and just like give it a tweet feed. You've said so many things, like in terms of how we could start looking at what we do differently. And someone did ask a really good question, which is, if we do these data science projects, there's that fear, that anxiety, what if we lose the individual or the person in all of these? And what would be your response to that? Because I'm sure you've heard that question before.
Yeah, I would say that you're not, that data science, one of the critical things that I think about is it's always user first, whether that user is our texters or our counselors. Everything that I'm doing is driving towards a better experience for them, and by creating these clear metrics, for example, the texter satisfaction, or we do counselor interviews, we do counselor satisfaction. Once we have that metric in place, we can see whether the changes we're making are actually, improving the outcomes for both of those groups, both our texters and our counselors. So you always know that what we're doing is actually improving outcomes in the long run. Yeah.
One of the things that Kendra is noticing at Kendra Quincy is that there's less qualitative than quantitative research in suicide, especially, for example, looking at our military studies. And what Kendra is noticing is that when it comes to like Department of Defense and Veterans Affairs, like, we're just more able, and I don't speak on behalf of Veterans Affairs unless I tell you I am. And so right now I can tell you that I work there, but I'm not speaking on their behalf. We're just able to, because of the largeness of our organization and the way that we collect healthcare data, we're able to get a lot of healthcare data. But you're absolutely right. We're doing a lot of quantitative research and not a lot of qualitative research. Like, Bob, as a data scientist, could you speak to this question of why there's this real difference in qualitative versus quantitative research?
So, yeah, the difference is it's clear to me as well. It's not the way I want it to be. I think for me and on our team, how we think about data, we think it's quantitative as the what and qualitative as the why. So you see a pattern in the data. You see, okay, open-ended questions lead to better outcomes from teens in crisis, or is correlated with, and then so you look qualitatively into the data to see, okay, what's really driving that difference. There always has to be one on its own isn't effective, so it's important to have that qualitative loop. And actually, my first few months on staff at Crisis Text Line, all my work was qualitative. It was going out, talking to over 100 counselors around the country about the software that they were using currently for phone online chat and some texting programs, and then using that qualitative data to feed into our design of the software that we built for Crisis Text Line, because we wanted to make sure that our program was counselor first. And really the only way to do that was to get that qualitative data.
Excellent, excellent summary. And I really wish we had the automatic tweeter, the things that we could have done. But we'll be putting this YouTube link with our Storify, so that people can watch this while they read through the comments. So this is, I think, one of the great things about this medium. I want to address one more thing, because I love Sanford James. I just like him, James Sanford, and he is on Twitter. And one of the things that he really discusses at each of our chats, and it's really important, as he says, there are real cultural differences in suicide and in reaching out for help. And he says, how, do we look at, or do we use data science to look at differences in race, culture, ethnicity in reaching out for help, expressing suicidal thoughts, things like that? Do we have any data science about that?
So this goes to something I've been thinking about over the course of this hour. Is a lot of this we talk about as data science, but a lot of it's some of the work I do is data science, some is just research, and that feeds into the data science. But going to Pew, and so Pew has data on how different races use texting, and so some of their data.
But the Pew Center for Research.
Pew Center of Research, yes. Thank you.
Sorry,
I shorthand that because I use it too much.
Yeah.
Probably.
Is the most validating
we're the nerds.
ever.
But we're the nerds.
Oh, it's just, it's like NPR, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not one of those acronyms. But their data show that the average white youth exchanges about 50 text messages per day, and the average Latino youth exchanges about 100 text messages per day. So we know that texting is just a richer medium for Latino youth. So when we created Crisis Text Line, we knew that we would probably be over-indexing for minority youth. And actually, in the data that we saw from Chicago and El Paso, we actually saw adoption rate about 3.5 times as high in El Paso as we did in Chicago. We're not collecting specific race data, but the trend is clear. And so so the data's out there, and we're definitely thinking about that when we created our service and ongoing.
So James Saylor Sanford, I'm sure I'm mixing your names around like I do, but I think what's really great about what Bob Philbin is saying is that data science could help us find out strategies and delivery methods that have different adoption and deployments in different populations, and we could really actually find out the answers. And you really talked about how culture really impacts the way the issue is seen or the way that the services are received or delivered, and data science could help us really be very clear about that. So, and if that's something that you chat with your students about, I would love to hear, if you're tweeting this week, your thoughts about that. We are wrapping up. It is 2 past the hour at Bob Philbin.
This is great. I had a great time, and the bucket questions kept us on our guard. So,
I really appreciate, we really have been working on refining this, and we're working on figuring out how you could sort of tweet and do this at the same time. This was a little bit of a more step out on that limb, and I'm really super grateful that you took it with us.
Thank you. Yeah, a pleasure being here, and thank you for having me. Yeah.
So if people want to contact you for follow-up questions, where can they find you?
Actually, at Bob Philbin is a great way to go, and just direct message me, follow me. Yeah.
Okay, so everybody, if we're wrapping up at SPSM, please do remember we'll be chatting again next Sunday, #SPSM. We'll be having folks from T2 again, so Bill Wheeler will be bringing another fantastic technology developer with us. If you want to talk with Bob Philbin, I'm not going to get anyone's name right tonight, that's just what's going to happen. You can find @Bob Philbin on Twitter. You can check out his projects at crisistextline, right, .org.
Yes, and the crisis trends are at crisistrends.org.
Fantastic. And everybody, if you want to meet the most validating man alive, you just have to follow @ADWW on Twitter. Magic will happen. Thanks for coming with us, everybody, on this journey. Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.